For today's session, we have two software engineers, Akshay Jain and Saunved, who are joining us. And we for today's session, we actually have a panel of student interviewers. We have Pragnesh Patil, Yog Srivastava, and Arav Vikaji, who are going to be interviewing the speakers. And maybe we can just have an introduction for who the speakers are. Um, Samved, would you like to go first? Maybe just introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name is Saunved. I'm currently residing in Pune and I run a software development company called Reswitch Technologies. I've been doing it for the last 2.5 years, and I've learned a lot of things along the way, which I hope I can share with you guys.
Hey, that's wonderful. Great. Akshay?
Hey, I'm Akshay. Right now, I'm in San Francisco. I'm working at Robinhood right now, which is like a trading app similar to Zerodha, which is there in India. I have about 10, 12 years of experience now in the industry. And I did my master's undergrad, both in computer science. Hope to share that learning and advice with you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Um, just a few instructions before we begin the session. Um, for those of you who attended the session where we taught you guys how to take notes, I think you should make use of it and take amazing notes for this session. We will also be sharing a reflection sheet with you guys after the session. So look forward to it. It's compulsory for all of you to fill it because it will help you to make better sense of uh, what you guys will be learning today. So without wasting any more time, I think I'll hand it over to Pragnesh to start the interview.
Yeah. So good morning all. I'm Pragnesh. So before we actually dive into this ocean of questions, I would like to know, like, in general, what do you do? What is the perspective of your job? And what do you exactly write when you sit on your workstation behind a desk?
I can go first. So
Sure.
coding is a very vast thing. Like you can do a lot of things that are called coding. For me, in personally, right now I'm doing backend programming. So I'm writing new services, which is basically code that runs on servers in big data centers, and that processes like user information that comes in and gives back some response or something for the user. So to put it more into perspective, I'm in the growth team at Robinhood. So growth is basically responsible for how to grow the company, how to get new users. So all the systems that I'm building have to be connected to somehow bring more users in and sign up to the app tomorrow, next month, 1 year from now. Samved, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So what I do in my company is we create software for small businesses, and in general, my job it involves a lot of coding, but it also involves, keeping up with clients, keeping up with my team, keeping up with a lot of aspects that are allied to coding. I mostly do front end development, which means that I make the screens that you see on your phones. I code those screens, and I also do a bit of back end coding, which involves certain kinds of processing on the server or saving things to a database to persist it for later and stuff like that. So that's kind of the basic overview of what I do in my company.
Thank you. So the next question, we both know that you work in an IT company and a product company. Could you please give us a brief upon the all those type of companies and the difference between them?
Okay, so usually in IT, there's a basic bifurcation between service-based and product-based. I think Akshay works in a product-based company since that's Robinhood that he works at. And what I do primarily is a service-based company, which means that I don't own the product for which I work. I make it for somebody else. What kind of distinction are you looking for in terms of what kind of job we have or what kind of work
In
we
general,
like to do?
in general, sir.
Okay. So in a service-based company, you are not deciding what your product is going to do most of the times. Your client comes to you with some requirements. You have to figure out how to solve their problem for them, and you provide a solution. It can be in terms of a software, or it can be in terms of a particular approach to solving something if you're a consultancy. And in a product-based company, the problem that you're going to solve is determined by, well, mostly the market, but also what is the idea that you have. So you decide your own roadmap, and then everybody on your team or whoever is working under you, they will try to bring it into motion, by coding. I think Akshay can explain that a little better since he works at a product-based company.
Yeah, definitely. So product-based company is, I think, riskier. Like a lot of people think about building a startup, and that is usually a product company. They think that, okay, it would be great to have this app or this website or something that does this automatically. And they build it. They might put millions of dollars in it, and 99% of the times, no one uses it or it doesn't work. So there is a lot more risk, but if it works, if it fills some need in people's lives, there's also a lot more possibility. So you can improve it, you can set your own direction, roadmap. So as Saunved said, no client defines the product direction or requirements. So you are like the owner of the product.
I would like to add to that. So when we started off, we did start off as a product-based company. We wanted to make a product, and we eventually transitioned into the service sector because of a lot of factors, which we might get into in the further questions that we have.
Sure. Over to you, Arav.
Okay, so was getting into coding your decision, or you just got influenced by your friends or something? And what got you interested into coding? What developed your interest in it? And can you tell your story behind it?
So for me, what got me into coding was being bored in class in 11th standard. That's basically it. I was bored in class. I did not want to do physics. I did not want to do mathematics. I like chemistry a little bit. But to be honest, I just wanted to kind of do something that interested me a little more. So I got into coding to kind of, just learn something new that can be applied immediately and do certain things with it. And that was how I started. I started with Java. I really loved Java. At that point of time, I think Java was kind of the big thing. Uh, I think this is around 7, 8 years ago. And then eventually I transitioned into web development.
Nice. So a very similar stupid origin story. My writing was pretty bad. So all the subjects where I had to write a lot, I used to just never finish the paper. So I never studied for those exams, like studied the whole coursework. That why will I study everything if I cannot write everything, finish the paper, right? And a computer lab had AC, and Delhi can get pretty hot in summers. So I used to try to spend more time there. Um, that's how I got into coding. But then I did more and more of it because I was interested in inter-school competitions. Those used to be fun. And there were a bunch of coding competitions at that time, like PowerPoint competitions mostly, not algorithmic coding or anything. Right now, they have lots of those, which is great. But making those PowerPoints using computer a lot helped. And then my dad got a like basic system at home, which helped further in like high school.
That's cool. So these days we see a lot of hype about learning to program. We turn on the TV, we see ads to join to actually learn it. We turn on the news, we turn on the news, we see that the government is trying to put coding in programming in the syllabus. And between all this, how do we just cut the noise out and figure out that is coding for myself?
So I can start. It's like I don't think it's easy to like find your passion early. I don't think I have found like figured out if coding is really my calling even now. I can someday just get up and do biology or something, neuroscience. I am reading a lot of those books recently. But the hype about coding is real. Like all the industries in the world are using coding, need coding. All the sectors, all the different, like coding is a tool. It's not the product in itself. A lot of apps are coding only, but they fulfill some or the other purpose in life, like all the finance apps, all the healthcare apps, all the services that will be provided or products that will have some coding here or there in the future. So even for things like when you go to a big store like McD or like a big chain like Starbucks and buy coffee, and you think there is no coding involved there, like a lot of what should be sold at which shop and how much of which item should be stocked, like sugar, coffee, is calculated through like a lot of algorithms in the backend.
I really agree with what Akshay has to say because see, the hype about coding is absolutely real in the sense that what coding allows you to do is it allows you to automate certain things and it allows you to make intelligent decisions based on those certain things. So even though the hype is real, I don't believe that everybody needs to get into coding. It's also something that's specific to you, specific to your interests. What's important to take away from this hype is that you need to have an understanding that certain things can be automated and you need to have an overview of how they can be automated, not necessarily that you can code those things day in and day out. So that's an important distinction, which I think I don't know if the ads that you're seeing online are providing with that. I don't think they're doing that. They're just telling you, you make an app and then you'll have a venture capitalist coming to you with $1 million. That's not going to happen. It's just hype. But the takeaway is that you have to learn some amounts of coding just to understand that, okay, this is possible. These are the kind of things that can happen in the world.
Okay, that's great. So, as we know that software industry is a fast-paced industry and it evolves very quickly. So, what are the challenges that you faced which you want to share with us so that we can also improve and it will help us?
So yeah, software industry is fast paced. That is like the absolute truth, and that is, I think, what differentiates it from every other industry. That the languages, the tools, the platforms we are using are changing every day. Like within like every year, the new language that people are using changes, and the technologies or the libraries people are using changes, and UI changes a lot. Like if you look at an app on your phone, you can probably tell if it is a recent app or an old app by the UI, or even the websites are easy to tell if it is 10 years old, 20 years old. While for houses, it will be harder unless like the paint, no one has ever repainted it. So Untold challenges wise, this is the challenge to keep up with the industry. Once you get a degree in, let's say, medical, a doctor's degree or a lawyer's degree, you know enough to practice law or medicine for a long time. Like you don't have to keep learning every week, every month. In software, you have to keep Googling stuff or just even take courses regularly to stay updated and stay relevant. And that also leads to like one more thing I would like to like call out is imposter syndrome. I don't know how many people have heard about it, but it's a real thing when you get into like your careers or something. So in school, you keep giving exams and you know where you stand from your score. In industry, like particularly for coding industry, because the technologies are changing and there is no exam to say how well you are doing, you sometimes feel like you are not good enough. The code you're writing or the things you're doing are not up to the standard, and that is usually totally wrong. But it is a mental stress that you take up when you learn new things throughout your life.
I do agree with that. I'm sorry, like my dad was asking me something, so I missed the actual question. But what I gathered is that you asked about the untold challenges that you have to face on a daily basis. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, Arav
Yeah,
can repeat the question if you want.
yeah.
Yeah,
Really
okay.
sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So as I said, software industry is fast paced and it evolves. So what are the untold challenges that you face because of that,
Right.
which you
Okay. Um,
want to share with us?
I liked a lot of the things that Akshay said. One more thing I would like to tell is you tend to get swayed by trends and hypes a lot of the times. Something new comes out every single day, and you're kind of expected to know it because people follow forums, they follow different websites, they see what is going on, and it puts you into that kind of a pressure. Should I be knowing this? Should I be knowing that? And that's one of the challenges of this whole thing. That keeping up with every little thing that is going on around you, and like you said, how do you cut through the noise of this? This is one of the challenge. How do you know that what you're reading is actually helpful for you, or it's just something that you can avoid and doesn't really matter? So it's one of the challenges that is kind of specific to the coding industry, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Over to you.
So next question. How much of a challenge is the supply demand gap in the software industry, and what are the opportunities you can get out of it? And what is it like for IT companies and product companies?
I can speak for IT companies or service companies. Currently, because of COVID, the demand increased in the market because a lot of companies that were working offline suddenly decided that they needed to go online in some way or the other to survive or to sustain. So there is a lot of demand in the market. At the same time, in the service industry specifically, there is also a lot of supply. And the problem is that there are literally thousands of service companies, and because of the nature of software, anybody in the world can supply to anybody else in the world. You're not specified to being in one location, and that doesn't give you any particular advantage. So I would say there's a lot of supply and there is a lot of demand in the service sector. At least with products, it's specific to that product, which Akshay can elaborate on, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So, according to me, the gap is very big. Like, the salaries are still rising. They were high when I joined when I started my career. I remember my friends in other branches, other things getting low package. But this demand supply gap is because the world is changing and so many things can be automated, and there are so many entrepreneurs who are trying to automate everything in our lives, that there is that need. Like if you create a new product, new thing that people need, they will pay for it, and there is a lot of money in the world. And what software does is it removes barriers. So if you make a app or a website or a service product in India or like remotest corner of the world, you can very easily make it available to the entire world, and entire world is really big. Like if you had a new curry or a new gulab jamun, you could only sell it to your local area, because shipping it to any other country or any other city even is a challenge. Software breaks that challenge, like takes away that challenge. You don't need, there's no cost of copying software, there's no cost of like transferring software from one corner of the world to another.
I would like to kind of add to that. The advantage that Akshay spoke about in terms of product companies is the disadvantage for service companies. Because if your product or your particular kind of the thing that you're trying to do, anybody in the world can also do at the same time, that's your competition in the service market. It's difficult to get past them or try to undercut them even for prices. So the advantage that works for a product company kind of doesn't work out for a service-based company.
Okay, that's great. So my question is, what kind of pay scale does this supply demand situation create for both kinds of the companies in the market? And how much can we expect to earn in both of the companies?
Would you like to go ahead? I mean, you know way more about this than I do, so I think
I know the situation in Silicon Valley. It's crazy right now, like it has been crazy since I have been here. So I joined Amazon like in 2012. That was like a 12 lakh per year pay scale. I don't know how much it has increased, maybe doubled right now. And that was like the highest any software company was paying in India at that time. So when I came here and started working here, I realized that there is no upper bound to this pay scale. Like there are some companies who pay in tens of crores, like if I convert to Indian rupees, for like a really good programmer. So there is a concept of 100x programmer. And if you have enough experience and you have led enough teams or good projects, you can get to that scale where you are earning more than most CEOs even.
I don't think I have much to say about this. So, yeah.
And this is like, I would like to add, this is all because of supply demand. Like some companies want people who have like 10 years of experience leading building services in this particular language and framework, right? And because that language and framework are themselves like 9 years old, you can only hire like 1 out of 5 people who have done it for that long or have that kind of experience. So think about 3 top companies with like unlimited cash fighting over these 3-4 people. The like offers just keep on increasing. It's like more like an auction at that level. So I'm not at that level, but just saying that I know people who get that kind of like demand in the industry.
I think Ruby is one of those languages that people are that are talking about. Like people do fight over Ruby programmers because it's an old
Goal can
framework and a
also
lot
be
of
one. The banking system are made with them, and many people don't actually program in them because it's very complicated.
Sorry.
COBOL can also be one language like that because the banking system uses it, and many people don't actually do it anymore.
Okay. Right. So what he's talking about, I guess, is some sort of legacy tech. We call this legacy uh, because these are languages that have been around for a long time, and usually people learn the latest languages and they don't go for these old ones because um, the older languages have less. I don't know why, but there's just people don't go for it. They go for the thing that is out there right now. So maybe that might be one of the reasons why these programmers, with their experience that they have, they are in such high demand. Profits in some cases to thousands of times the amount that you put in at once. So it's a very broad question. Some companies work with losses like Zomato or Swiggy or especially new startups that are funded. And in other times, there are companies who supply to other companies. They have a monopoly over their product, so they can get a lot of returns from what they have created and the software that they have built.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So my company is still like loss making, one of the companies that is still like funded by people. So right now for new companies, what they do is they make something work, make a product that works. They get a lot of users and they keep improving the product. And that is the cash burning part, where someone is like giving you money to just make the product as good as possible, as fast as possible. And then you can increase the price of your product or service and make it profitable. Profitability is not hard, but yeah, how good your product is will decide how much profitable can you get in.
Okay.
Just to come in to add to Akshay's point, all of you would use Zomato, right? I'm sure all of you would be using Zomato. Zomato is an Indian product company that recently is trying to become profitable, but after like 10, 12 years of operation. So just wanted to give you an Indian example that you'd be familiar with. Sorry, back to you.
Yeah, so next question. So what mentality do you need to excel as a coder, and what skills do you need to do the same?
Akshay, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah. What mentality and skills do you need to have to excel as a coder? So a lot of, I will say, patience and persistence. So you are trying to teach a box filled with wires and electricity how to think and do something very particular. So you have to be very patient because things will not work in the first try, second try, 10th try, 20th try, 100th try even. So patience and persistence come there. And then lifelong learning is something that both of us mentioned a bit ago, that new languages, new frameworks will keep coming, and you have to have that curiosity to keep in touch, stay in touch with what is the newest thing, and do you want to learn it or not. And if you do want to learn it, you have to go and learn it really fast.
I agree with that. I would have said something along the same lines. In terms of the skills, I think you need to have a good grasping capacity, the ability to look at something and form patterns regarding that thing, and that comes with exposure. The more languages you look at, the more you code, the more different things you try out, the more patterns you will start seeing in how to code or how to approach a specific problem. One more thing I would like to add to that is that you need to refine your problem solving skills. What I mean by that is not just like solving. I think you guys are all in school, right? So you must have geometry, or um, at this age you might have geometry in your syllabus, and maybe one of your teachers has told you that there are 3 ways to solve any geometry problem. And that's kind of true with a lot of coding also. There's multiple ways in which you can solve the same problem. So you have to learn to look at things from 3 different angles, 4 different angles, and kind of analyze what you're trying to do, besides having the patience and persistence to go through all of that process in the first place.
Okay, thank you again. So coming to your college life, what college did you exactly go to? And how was it like to actually study about programming in college? And can I learn it on my own? If yes, can I also land a job in reputed companies by it?
Okay. So I went to the Pune Institute of Computer Technology, and I did information technology over there. And what did I learn in college? Honestly, in terms of my personal experience, at least, I was able to get a good peer group, which allowed me to collaborate with people. That was my biggest takeaway from college, being able to get a good peer group, being able to get like-minded people who kind of show you what is possible out there, right? It's not the syllabus, but it's the people who you are with that matter the most, according to me, when you're in college. And yes, you can learn coding outside of college. In fact, you do learn coding outside of college. You don't learn coding in college. You learn how to survive in college. So that's important. However, I would like to add, at least in India, even right now, it is difficult to land a job without a degree. I don't want to raise your hopes by saying, yeah, you can land a job. In India, it's difficult because even outside, it's a little difficult, but Akshay might have a better perspective on that. But here, at least, they will ask you for a degree. They will expect a bachelor's or BSc or something along the same lines. So you can learn coding, you can be a really great programmer, but you might not qualify even for the interviews if you don't have a degree. It's one of the problems, but it's just the population is so high that it's difficult to solve this problem at this point.
I totally agree that coding, the learning happens outside of college. So if you have the right peer group, which college sometimes give you, like if you are in a good college in doing the computer science course, uh, most of the people will be like very studious or academic. Forming that group is easy. If you are in a mediocre or like okay college, local like college, you have to work to find that group, people who are interested in coding, actually learning. And you can pass without learning in most like courses, even for good colleges, but you have to have that interest and passion. So the coding learning happens outside college or like in college, but by your own willpower. So you can learn coding on your own. Having that degree helps to get calls, like get your resume noticed, but you can as well like create projects and have like a good GitHub history, or have a couple of websites, like make your portfolio. That is the harder way to go, but I have seen a bunch of people move forward in that way, and that will need a lot of self motivation. But definitely one, like computer science is more happy with people not having degrees than other uh, professions that are common.
Yeah. So next question. So does
So
being a good
there are a lot of questions in the chat. Do we want to do them at the end, or should we put them in the middle?
Mansur?
Some of those questions we have in the lineup, but others we can pick. We can pick. For example,
So the short answer is do it at the end.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so does being a good coder depend on which college you go to? And if yes, how much does it depend on the college? And why?
I don't think it depends on the college, really. Like I said, depends on your peer group, depends on what kind of people you become friends with and how they influence you. It's one of the most important things with college. Being a good or a bad programmer is not a factor of being in a good or a bad college, but being able to stick to programming is a factor of being in a good college. So if you are in a good college, you will kind of be shepherded ahead with the rest of the people, which can work for a lot of people. It gives them the stability. It allows them to have the discipline to continue learning programming. That's what a good college will do for you. You can be in a very bad college and still be a very good programmer. So it's a very subjective person to person kind of a thing.
Agree. Lot of people in good colleges are pretty bad programmers and end up changing their professions or roles later. So they become managers, try to become managers really fast, or go into product management, design, other things. MBA is one thing that a lot of people do after computer science because they don't really like coding. So if you want to learn coding, you can do it anywhere with like some help from good peers who like challenge you or motivate you.
But then what's the benefit of going to a good college? Like, yes, you can learn it anywhere, but let's say you get into a good college, उससे क्या होता है?
So direction is very important in life, and a good college has a good course, like in general. So if you follow the course, you will get your basics really strong. So by yourself or in a bad college, you will have to cut through the like clutter and find what is a good source of like learning. Like one of the questions in the chat is what courses are good to start coding, what do we need to learn, and is there any good course for this? So this is a common question that I see in a lot of places, and if you join a good college, they will have that good syllabus pre-prepared for you with teachers who know what they are teaching, and other peers, students who are also interested in learning that subject.
Thank you. So you have survived college quite efficiently, but what is that one thing that you have taken away from your college that has always helped you and you will never forget about it?
I think my silence is not a good endorsement for the college life. Honestly, with college, I've learned that it's, like I said, it's what kind of people you get in with and how they influence you. That's what you learn in college, very honestly. Like the course and what the course has, what the syllabus is, who the teachers are, it's an underlying, it's like a underlying current of everything that you're doing. But what you really learn is what to pursue and what are your actual interests. Do you even really like coding, right? You're going to find out that in college. You're not going to really understand it beforehand. It's the nature of how the education system is. So that would be my key takeaway, just what kind of people you work best with and how they influence you.
Sir, but if the college isn't good, then why will the top companies will employ you? Like, why will Microsoft or Google employ you if you are not from IIT or something else?
Okay, Akshay, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I have like friends in Google and Facebook and everywhere who are from like colleges no one knows the name of, even in their like home city in India. So it will take you one or two more hops. So for a couple of years, you might be in Infosys, TCS, or some like local like company that is very small. But if you have interest in coding, you can then in a year or 2 years apply to the bigger companies, and they appreciate experience. Like more than freshers, all the companies, the biggest companies want experience. So if you have 2 years of 3 years of experience coding in Java or Python or a particular technology they want, they will then give you the interview. So I directly got the chance to go to Amazon from NIT Calicut, because NIT Calicut is a college that Amazon goes to for recruiting in that year. But in my team, half the people were from a different job, and no one knew the name of their colleges. So people, it's not like it's full of just people from IITs, like these big companies.
So there's a question in the chat that talks about the competition, right? Whenever someone gets into a field, there's public hype, numerous individuals go for it. This is really important. If you guys have seen someone with a master's degree in the 1980s or even a bachelor's degree in the 1980s could get a job even abroad at that point of time. Today, a bachelor's degree, the value of it is less because there are so many people with a bachelor's degree. So it doesn't mean that college is not adding value or the degree doesn't have any value at all. It just means that because there is so much supply and there is a lack of quality supply, that kind of means you have to, like Akshay said, go 2 extra hops or 3 extra hops, get into one company first and get some experience, then get into the bigger company. That's the kind of a situation that we are in because there's so much competition in this field. So these are the trade-offs that you have to do sometimes.
So coming back to the question, what is the one thing that you learned in college? I learned how to think in masters. I thought I knew how to think, like, but masters basically in America gave me the problem-solving mindset in real. Like the path doesn't matter. Like if you are given a problem statement, like what problem you want to solve, you have to try a lot of things until you get it solved to the satisfaction you want, like to the degree you want.
Okay, that's great. So my question is, what is technology involved in AI, machine learning, blockchain, and Genesis tech?
Can you repeat that? What did you ask? What is the technologies for machine learning?
Yes, I will repeat. So, what is technology like involved in AI, machine learning, blockchain, and Genesis tech? And how big role will it play in the future? Say, like 20 years till I think 2040.
So I can go first. Coding is the same even in these applications. Like it looks a little different, but it is the coding remains the same, the languages remain the same. Machine learning, AI systems, blockchain, also you code in Python or C++ or Java or any language you choose. So the application or the way you use it and the concepts you combine it with change. So in blockchain, you need to learn a bunch of math and crypto concepts to basically create those systems that can do those blockchain transactions. In machine learning, you need math and a particular kind of math, like certain techniques, how to get computers to learn, like do machine learning in a particular area. Machine learning is also a very wide field. So the coding part of machine learning is a separate thing. That is the implementation of machine learning. Machine learning theoretical part is mostly math, probability, and heuristics.
Yep, I'm not a MLA or blockchain coder, so I don't have much exposure to this. So I would like to skip this question.
And anything about Genesis? I heard my parents saying about that.
Did you say
Genesis?
Sorry?
Genetics.
Genetics? Okay. Genetics, I don't know, like genetics is a biology field.
Sir, I'm saying Genesis, like Genesis.
Terminator Genesis. That Genesis.
Genesis.
I have no idea how that
Yeah.
relates to coding, sorry.
Okay, sir, no problem. So this another question I'm going to ask, that's for Akshay, sir. So why did you choose to go to New York University, and how competitive is it to get into the New York University? And after you got into it, was the course easy or difficult for you?
That is a very good question. So I did my undergrad in NIT Calicut, and if anyone knows Kerala, it's mostly a jungle, and my college was in the middle of a jungle. So for masters, I wanted to get the college experience. Like living in Delhi, I had a certain image of what my college life should be. So New York gave me that. How competitive it is, I feel lucky to get into NYU. But after I came to the college, I realized that a lot of people from very okay colleges and not having a very good undergrad score also got into NYU. So it's all about how much you prepare. So you need good GRE scores, you need good recommendations, you need a good statement of purpose. And in this statement of purpose is probably the most important. So this is more about masters, but when you prepare to go to undergrad, it's mostly based on like exams, IIT JEE and IIIE, or whichever the exam is, AIEEE, sorry. But for masters, it's a per college application. So you have to apply to like 20, 30 top colleges and then hope that you get lucky in one of them. It's very, very subjective. And how easy, difficult was the course once you got in? This is like hard to say. I picked the most hardest courses in the college. Like I just asked my seniors which are the hardest or most interesting courses, and I went for them because coming from a like government college in India, the fee was very high. Like I wanted to use every dollar I am spending, and my dad was paying part of it. So I felt obliged to like take the hardest courses so that I get the most out of it. So it was a little hard for me, but I think I made it hard. There are easy courses too. And most of the courses are optional if you go to a university outside India. Indian universities didn't have that many optional courses when I studied there. Now maybe they do.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Pragnesh.
Yeah. So as you're studying in New York, how expensive was it to actually study abroad, considering your situation, and how did you exactly manage it? And once you got there, how did your life as a programmer actually change? And was it actually worth it?
Very, very good question. Like made me do. This is very interesting and good question. It was very expensive. So at that time also, now the fee has probably increased, but the tuition fee itself was more than 50 lakh, and it has to be paid per semester. So for the first semester, dad had to pay everything. So sell stuff and take loan and pay that. Then I got 3 part-time jobs, and my job selection criteria was which job is paying the most. So I somehow became the teaching assistant for a PhD course because it was paying a lot. So I had to study a lot to for that TA, a lot more than I was studying for my own courses. And in the end, like it pays off. There are some concessions you can see somewhere, like find some small scholarship here and there. I didn't get one, but yeah, you can live in a cheaper place. So I was sharing my room with another person, and coming from like working in Amazon for a year in India and having a 4-bedroom apartment just to myself, to sharing a room is kind of hard, but you manage.
That's deep. Over to you, Arav.
Yeah. So my next
Sorry?
question is no nothing. My next question is like, what is it like working at companies like Facebook or Amazon or Uber and now Robinhood? How is your job different from the engineers who work at like TCS or Infosys, etc.? Whatever.
I think this comes back to like product versus services question. Like I think Accenture, TCS, Infosys are all service companies like ID. So they provide services, they build things for other companies. Working at Facebook, Uber, Amazon has been great. Like these companies provide you with ownership of the product you are building, and you can take decisions, and your only job is to solve the problem in the best way possible. So you get a lot of freedom to take your time and resources and solve it in the way you think it is the best to solve it.
Sir, what
Sorry,
kind
one
of
thing to add here. I always wanted to start my own company. I have not yet done that, but I'm making my way there. So starting with Amazon, Facebook, Uber, Robinhood, I have always come to a smaller company so that someday I land into a one-person company, which is me, and
Can
then
you
make
tell us
it big.
about it more?
About like
Your company
the
that
company.
you dream to make.
Yeah, I don't know what it will be. Like the day I find out what company I want to make, I will go and make it probably, hopefully. But yeah, I'm playing the safe bet because I've seen a bunch of people or heard horror stories that people go for their own companies and the own company fails, and then they go and join a big company and are not happy.
Okay,
That's harsh. Over to you.
Yeah, so do companies in general treat coders differently, and can you give some examples?
So one question: coders differently from like people with uh, other job roles, or like each coder differently from
with other backgrounds, non-coders.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like it's a privilege to be a coder because of the demand supply gap. Also, coding is looked on by managers and people in other with other backgrounds as something of a like hard thing to do. But when you are a coder, it's not really that hard. So coders are given some amount of privilege in the companies I've worked at. So yeah, coders will have the best benefits, most salary for the same level, most freedom to have a background like no college degree, and you can still apply. And I have seen the fastest growth for coders. So one of my friends joined right from undergrad, and in half a year he was promoted, and then in another half year he was promoted again. And I was like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff. And he was not doing anything extraordinary, but he was just a good coder. So if you are a good coder, you can grow pretty fast, which doesn't happen in other roles that I know of.
Sir, I had one doubt. How is maths important in computer science? Like designing a website doesn't require complex calculations or anything like that.
Yes. So coding is very wide, like it's a wide field. That's why I think everyone should do some coding at some point early in their career, because coding can be part of any very different solutions. So some things that were mentioned before, AI, ML, blockchain, all need math and probability, a little bit of probability. Designing websites, zero math. Server side coding usually doesn't need math, like 99% of the time. So depends on the field you are applying coding to, if you need math or not. In some fields, you will even need bio. So I was the research assistant at a biology lab for about a year, and I learned a lot about like plant genetics and genomes and how do they work, just because I was coding their website for them.
Sir, so how much long-term prospect is there in those streams where math is not required? Long-term.
So for most of the streams, math is not required. As I said, biology is one thing you can look at, which is growing really fast. Even in finance, like it is not intuitive, but in finance, you don't require math. Finance is all addition, subtraction. And a lot of fintech companies like Robinhood are growing pretty fast. All the banking is becoming very high tech, and money is becoming digital, like Paytm. So there are those things. And then marketplaces like Uber or like online shopping don't require math. So I will say most of programming doesn't require math.
Okay, can we hold questions from the audience till the and take them in the end, please? If you have any questions, you can put it in chat. I'm making a note of all the questions, and we'll make sure that we address those questions in the end. We'll stick to the flow for now. Thank you.
So my question is, I have seen many people switching jobs from one company to other. Even my elder cousins or my aunties, my uncles, they switch jobs. So why do you switch jobs? What I mean, it seems odd to me because that's not what we do. I don't switch schools so often. So why do we switch jobs from one company to another?
Very, very good question. It is about opportunity. Like it's basically coders making use of the demand supply gap, I will say. So if there were very few companies and it was really hard to get a job, I don't think people would be switching jobs after getting a job. Like they will stay at the same company. Right now, on a like regular day, I will get at least 4 to 5 mails from recruiters from other companies asking if I would entertain like some position in that company. And a couple of times in a year, I am frustrated with my job or thinking that, oh, this project is not that good. And I will be like, okay, let me just talk with this recruiter. That position looked good. So there is a lot of opportunity to grow. And if you can get much better work, much more interesting work, and much more pay at a different company, why will you stay at the same company? Like that is, I will say, laziness.
So is this true even for the best companies like Facebook, Google? Do people even switch from those companies very often?
Yes. Actually, like being in Amazon, I know that the attrition rate is how many people leave the company, like average time after which people leave the company. The attrition time is about 1 year. So average person stays for a year. So think about a lot of people staying for 4 or 5 years. That basically means that a lot of people leave within 1 year. And this is not because you don't want that company name on your resume. Like I would like to have 5 years of Amazon on my resume, but I left after 1 year because each company has their own culture. And if the culture doesn't suit you, there is enough opportunity in the world for coders that you can go and find the culture that suits you best. So Amazon doesn't suit a lot of people. Facebook is also pretty intense and might not suit people. I managed to stay like almost 4 years there, but at the end of 4 years, I was like, yeah, I'm looking for a different culture where I can have more ownership and more structured documentation. Like, yeah, there was no documentation at Facebook.
Can you give a perspective on this culture aspect, because students may not understand this very well?
Yeah, definitely. So culture is something that like in the school you have a schedule, right? You do some prayers in the morning, learn something. So the school imposes some rules and you have to basically follow that rules. In a company, there is no one imposing rules because most of the work is done by interactions. So student people like in the form of projects. So when you do projects in schools, you kind of form your own culture, like who is doing the maximum work or who is doing the talking, who is doing all the writing. In companies, that translates to a very complex dynamic where you are expected to, let's say, work for 10 hours or 6 hours. If you are sick, can you take 1 week of leave or not? Can you talk freely to your manager about needing to change teams? Can you suggest projects by your own? So company is a collaborative effort. Think of it like a giant project, and how you interact with other people is basically the culture of that company. So to give a comparison, in Amazon, directors or high level people who have been there for a long time will suggest what to build, and you get the directions on which part of that system to build. In Facebook, it's the reverse. So team will sit together, the lowest level people, like individual contributors. They are not managing anyone. They will sit and decide what are the good ideas that we can build, and then they will brainstorm and think, okay, let's build this is the best idea among the group, and they will give their manager that decision, and the manager has to put their stamp on it or reject it for a good legal reason, like we cannot build this because it is too bad or something like that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It is hard to explain culture, so sorry if that was not a simple explanation.
Terms and condition apply.
Sorry?
Nothing. Continuing, this question is for you both, Saunved and Akshay. So you both have a lot of exposure in this industry, and you have seen the insight from each and every post almost, and you have known people also. So how well are the women exactly represented in this industry, and what sort of challenges do women actually face on day-to-day basis or work life in this industry?
Okay. So I don't have a lot of experience with this question. What I would like to say is that women are there in the industry, and women can become coders, of course, and they can do a better job than men or an equal job. So in terms of the challenges that women face in the industry, in general, like if you see the general trend, there have been fewer women in this industry in the past, but that is now changing. Like the graph is going in the upwards direction, which is a positive thing. It's something that we all need to see more, because it just makes for a better workplace with different perspectives and different ways of looking at the same thing. And like Akshay said, it might be a part of a company's culture to ensure that enough women are hired in the company to have that equality and have the kind of conversations that come up in that particular context. So what problems women face, I'm not very aware of that beyond the biological factors that might happen. But in terms of the day-to-day activities, I'm not very sure what the general problems are.
So the companies that I have worked in have a big focus on like giving enough representation to women. And this is because of a good reason. Like these companies are not doing this out of goodwill. there have been studies after studies that women are better coders. Like they somehow, like culturally or for whatever reason, they think more during a problem, like while solving a problem, they get into less ego wars. And having women in the team improves the productivity of the team. This trend is also observed for diversity. Like if all the people are white American males, the team is less productive or creates less good products, less quality products than having one Asian, one European, one Indian, one black person. So the diversity is very good for the company's products, and they kind of want that. So women are getting, I will say, a lot more opportunity than men. Like some of the companies that called the girls I was doing college with did not call me, although I had a better resume. And that is probably because they had a goal that we want at least this many women in our teams, right? And what sort of challenges do they face? So historically, as Saunved said, there have been lesser women in coding. And although the initial like first team that did coding for NASA or something was all women, right now it's a very men dominated field, and women usually get paid lower. No one knows the exact reason why, but it is probably because, like, I think it is because men bargain a lot. If a recruiter says, okay, I will give you X amount of money, I will say, okay, why not more? Like, I'm getting more from this other company, right? And women might not do that bargaining. And second thing is that women get cut a lot. So in conversations in meetings, I have seen that if a woman is talking, my male peers will feel more comfortable cutting the woman than if a male is talking. And that might be out of habit growing up, or just because the frequency of voice is different. I don't know what is the reason. But yeah, the field is equalizing, and women right now have a growing advantage. So definitely, like I see in 5 or 10 years that women will have pretty much equal representation in coding.
Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, so Saunved, this question is for you. You started your own company right after college. So what inspired you to start something of your own, and why didn't you join a company like most other graduates?
Right. So, since before I graduated from college in my third year of engineering, I felt like I wanted to just start my own company. It was just a calling for me. It wasn't something that I wanted to do just because everybody else, was getting into a job. So I want to do something different. It wasn't that. I just really felt like I wanted to start a business. I wanted to see what kind of challenges and problems can be faced by somebody starting a business. However, I would like to add that my family was supportive at that point of time. It's one of the most important things that you need to know when you're starting out, because when you're starting up or when you're getting into a business, it's not just you, it's also your entire family, especially if you're very young. And another important thing is that I was okay with taking that risk in terms of the finances because of my family's support. So it's really important. A lot of people think that starting a business means that you're going to get rich as soon as you start that business, right? In like 1 year or 2 years. But the reality is that it takes a long time. It can take up to a decade for you to actually be in a position where a coder who's just gotten out of a job, how much they are earning at that point of time. So my decision to do that was partly because I got some freelance contracts when I was in the third year and fourth year, and also because I was able to find certain colleagues who shared my interests and shared my desire to start a company. So that's why I actually got into getting into a software company.
That's nice. Arav?
Yeah. So as we know that you have your own business, so what motivates you and what excites you to run your own business or your enterprise? And when there is no one above you to set expectations and hold you accountable.
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest challenges. When there's nobody to drive you, there's nobody to tell you what to do. You have to define your own problem, and then you have to figure out your own time management, your own project management. You have to figure out how to talk to clients. You have to figure out how to manage your own team. So these are things that I like to do. So for me, it's something that I enjoyed from the beginning. That was one of the things, and that's about it. Like I most people that who run a business who are doing something good in their business, they'll tell you that they enjoy what they do on a daily basis and they like what they do on a daily basis. So it's one of the motivating factors. You're intrinsically in a place where you want to do that sort of a job, where you want to do that sort of a thing.
Okay, that is great. Thank you. Over to you, Pragnesh.
Yeah. So we hear that there are so many business starting these days. Even there is a show on DD National that just says that about the new startups that have started and gives info on them. And many more things are done to promote startup, but still most of them fail. What makes you think that your startup will succeed and you have the faith in it?
Nothing. Statistically, startups are bound to fail. 90% of startups do fail. So what you need to look at is there are a couple of things you have to look at when you're starting up, right? I mean, what are you trying to build? How much network do you have? How much money do you have? How long can you give a commitment for this? Will you burn out after a point of time? Will you get tired of this and say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore? So there are a lot of factors that affect this. I wouldn't say that there's something specific that this is why my company will succeed. There's nothing like that. Also, there's nothing like a unique idea. Most ideas that are out there, somebody else will have had, or there might even be $1 billion company doing the idea that you had today, right now. So honestly, I would say very honestly, there's nothing particular that propels me to say, I will be successful and I'll get this and I will get that. It's about following a process, following a method, and kind of just having some faith that what you're doing has potential in the future.
Thank you. That was indeed a deep answer. Over to you, Arav.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on this. Saunved, can you please talk about how difficult is it to actually start your own thing and keep it running? And maybe you can also talk about the recent developments that have happened at your end and sort of expose the truth behind these uh,
Yeah.
seemingly interesting things.
So a lot of what I see in the startup world is confirmation bias. I don't know if you guys have heard about this term before, but confirmation bias is when you read in the news that this company got funded for $5 million, this company got funded for 10 million, this got funded for 1 billion. The important thing to realize is that the news cycle is only telling you success stories, but behind every company that gets funded for XYZ amount, there are 1,000 companies that fail or get shut down pretty much every single day. So, like Mayank said, I shared this with him yesterday. About a week ago, I decided to step down from my company as a co-founder to look for other opportunities and to look for other things that I would like to do. And the important learning that I got from this experience is there are three things that you need to have, or one of these three things that you need to have in order to build a successful company. The first is that you need to have a really good network. You need to know the right people in the right places, or you need to know the right businesses in the right places. If you don't have that, you need to be rich. You need to have your own mechanism of funding yourself. Or if you don't have that, you need to have an idea that is proprietary or patentable that can get you royalties in the long run while you are building your product. So one of the reasons for me stepping down was that we didn't have any of these three things. And based on these learnings, it was important for me to step down and realize that the risk that I had taken at a young age was a good thing because I don't have any responsibilities, right? I'm pretty young. I don't have a family that I have to support at this point of time, or I don't have loans or EMIs that I have to take care of. So this was a risk that was taken in hindsight, which I think was a good decision for me to take the risk at this age, so that if I failed or if I decided to step down, I could do other things.
Okay, can you also talk about how you actually started a product company first and then got into service? How did that happen? Why did that happen?
So I've always wanted to start a product company. This was something that I was really sure about when we started out, because um, just the culture that you can build with a product company is vastly different from what you can build with a service company. So in the beginning, we worked on a product idea. It was in the payments field. It was related to converting your credit, or actually utilizing your credit and using it in your bank account immediately with a very less fee of sorts. And we tried to get funding for that. We tried to pitch to various investors, and they were interested. We got somewhere with some of them, and eventually it kind of fizzled out because we lacked the experience maybe, or we lacked the kind of understanding to get a product funded. This happens a lot, by the way. Like, a lot of products struggle to get funded for years sometimes. So when the pandemic hit, we kind of decided that we couldn't continue doing this, and for sustainability reasons, we shifted to a service based model, because we needed to survive at that point of time as a company. And service will give you sustainability, because there is a demand in the market, and you're going to find people who will want your services at some point or the other. So that's why we shifted to a service based model. We decided to provide softwares for small businesses, to create softwares for them, to solve problems for them. And now at this point of time, since I've always wanted to be in a product company, I've kind of lost the interest to keep it running, keep it going on at the pace that it is going on at.
Okay, great.
And also, it's very difficult to become a product company after becoming a service company. It's a vastly different mindset. It's a different way of thinking. So if you're thinking I'll start a service company and then eventually I'll become a product company, it doesn't really work out. It's a very different business model and way of thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so my question is for Sumit sir. Since you just started your career, what's your future plan?
So there are a couple of things you can do in software that interest me specifically. I've always been interested in software architecture. It's something that I really enjoy looking at. It's something that I'm learning. I'm not that experienced to become a software architect, but I would like to take my career in that direction. Besides that, there's other fields such as becoming a sales engineer, which means you have the knowledge of the tech and you are able to negotiate and make sales in a specific way. Or there's different options, like you can become a developer experience engineer. So you are a developer who makes tools for other developers to enhance their lives or to solve their problems so that their work becomes easier. So these are some of the options I'm looking at. And if you are asking me in terms of what I want to do in the future, I think I want to work in a product company for a while, explore how that works out, learn from people who are much smarter than me, understand their way of thinking, and then move forward like that.
Okay, thank you. That is a good answer. Over to you, Pragnesh.
So, Saunved and Akshay, you both have been in this industry for a lot of time, but there might be a very harsh reality of this industry that you understood only when you are knee deep into it. What would that be?
I can start. So, uh, like you might like some parts of coding. I liked to solve algorithmic challenges, which is basically get a hard problem, solve it by coding in the like best way possible. But a lot of the work is not exactly that. So like 50-60% of the work in a company, when you're working in any company, will not be to your enjoyment. So you have to get through that to get to the happy 30-40% of the work. So that is one harsh reality that I did not think about before.
Um, I agree with some of like what Akshay has said. There's also one more thing in the service industry that I would like to point out is there will always be someone who can provide the same thing that you're providing for a cheaper price than you're providing it at. It's always going to be there. There's always going to be somebody who can offer a lower price for the same thing that you're doing. And it's true actually for most industries out there. If you look around, it's just a harsh reality, but it's something you have to experience. When you go through that, when you realize that what the price that you offered, even if you thought it was cheap, there's going to be other people who will be far more competitive than you.
Okay.
You,
Yeah, Pragnesh.
over to you.
Yeah. So my next question is for both Saunved and Akshay. How is your life balance and how is your work-life balance, and what's the worst it can sometimes possibly get?
Okay, that's a good question. Um, Running a business, you kind of don't have a work-life balance. It's usually just work balance. You don't get much time to other things. You're kind of putting out fires pretty much every day. You're trying to um, do something or the other at some point of time. And sometimes you end up working 14 hours, 16 hours in a day, barely getting any sleep, barely getting time to eat, just day in and day out, making sure that you're able to provide the kind of service that is expected. And especially if you're a coder, it's not just about coding new features, it's also about fixing older things that you might have messed up. Or sometimes websites crash, things go wrong, your monitoring systems are not in place. Sometimes a client wants something very urgently from you, so you have to be available for them. So in a lot of ways it's quite stressful, especially if you're running a business. And there is not much work-life balance in that sense. Like, you really have to be um, very assertive and keep your phone away, or just decide I'm not going to look at work on a Sunday. Like, that's just something that you have to learn if you are the kind of a person who is looking to start a business and also get coding at the same time.
So I don't have that full experience. Like, I am kind of scared of that when I finally in future start my own company someday. But I agree with that last point, that you have to make your own, draw your own line. So if you want to give like at least 3-4 hours to your family uh, outside of your coding, like, and sleeping and eating, you have to decide to stop work at 6 or 7 p.m. and then spend time with your parents or brother, or do some social activity after that. Uh, Once I decided that, I have had a very good work-life balance. When I like, the opportunities are endless. So when you get a project, you can get it done in 2 days if you want to, or you can get it done in a month if you go slow. And if you are a like overachiever and you feel really confident, and programmers I have seen usually tend to be optimistic because in their head they have solved the problem, but when they code it in the computer, uh, things don't work in the first try, 10th try, 100th try sometimes. So that can get frustrating, but you have to still make time for yourself. And once you decide that you will not work on weekends and you will not work after 7 p.m. and you follow that, you will have good work-life balance. So I have a good work-life balance, but it's a kind of opposite thing. Like, when I'm interested in a project, I don't get frustrated, or I don't feel bad working long hours, and it actually energizes me and keeps me at full energy. Sleeping 8 hours is definitely very important. I will like to recommend outside all advice, like top advice. Outside that, if you are working more, do it because the project is interesting, or you want to, like, you are really interested in it, not because you have to. Always make time for other things and keep it sustainable, basically, in life.
I had a follow up on that, Akshay. I think you spoke about your time at NYU. Sounded like a very busy time because you took all the hardest courses. You were doing 3 part-time jobs. Can you talk a little bit about how your life is when you're starting to become a professional, right? And how is that sort of couple of years in the beginning different from, let's say, now when you're like 10 years into the field?
Yeah, definitely. That is a very good thing to talk about. Very good contrast. When I started out at Amazon, I was working till the evening. I was even coming in on weekends. The office was open 24/7 because I wanted to get more done. I wanted to reach somewhere. In NYU, I took the hardest courses. I took like almost 2x the workload of a normal master's, and I did not go see the different tourist attractions of New York that my friends have seen. And some people still laugh at it that I stayed there for 2 years and did not see this or that. But yeah, when you have the energy and you're passionate about like learning, you have that curiosity, you can let it flow. But one thing I learned in a bad way is that sleeping less is never the solution. It's never sustainable. I have slept less in masters to finish assignments because I had 3 assignment deadlines on the same day, hardest courses kind of thing. That is not good. Then I used to waste 2 days oversleeping or being not present in the class. Even in the job, in my first year of Facebook job, I was trying to pull that off, that I will do a lot more than what is expected of me. Doesn't work. You have to pace it out, give sleeping, eating, and relaxing some time. But if you are curious, go for it. As long as you are not eating badly and sleeping enough, you can work for rest of the time if your family allows it. So now I'm pretty balanced. If my manager is like, oh, you're not working enough or something, I will be like, I'm working these many hours. You can shift me to a different project, but I will not like destroy my work-life balance because you need me to work more.
Right.
Okay. So like as we know, coding is not so easy. So did you ever feel like quitting a job?
Yeah, like when I thought about quitting my job, I did. So that's why I've been in 4 companies till now. It's you don't quit your job usually because of the workload or like if you are getting paid less. Very few people quit it for like more money or anything. Most people, and including me, quit it because the manager was expecting too much or was not on the same lines. So I think we should build this product, but manager is like, no, we should build that product. And I was like, nope, I'm going. So that can happen. And then you can quit your job. It is not always required to quit your job. In a bigger company or in even medium-sized companies, you will have different teams. And most companies right now allow movement between teams. So you can go to a different team or change your project, and that might solve the problem. And I have done that a couple of times.
So I have thought of quitting my job, and I did. So it's a part of the process. You will quit jobs often if you're in coding. It just happens. Like he said, there might be a cultural difference, or there might just be a difference of opinion, or you just want a different kind of lifestyle. So it does happen. Quitting is a part of being a coder, honestly, and switching rather. If you're thinking about quitting from coding altogether because coding is difficult, that's a different kind of a problem, which I don't have that much experience with, but that might happen to some people also. It's each to his own.
So I have a good thing on that because I have thought about quitting coding altogether. And coding is like, I will say, compared to other fields you can get in, coding is the easiest to quit because with coding you can get into different fields. Like coding is a tool. So now, because I was in Facebook, I know a lot about product and social networks. Because I was in Uber, I know a lot about marketplaces and communications. Like I was in the communications team there. Because of Robinhood, I know a lot about finance. So if I want to pursue one of these careers, like in a related field, that would be easy because coding let me get the context on in different areas of like products, different product areas.
Okay. Next should be Yug. The big question that you wanted to ask.
So, what would be the pros and cons of your career as a coder, and how does it affect your daily life?
The pros and cons of being a coder and how it affects your daily life. Did I catch the question right?
Yuk?
Sir, I think I should ask the question.
Yeah, sure, Arav.
Okay. So the question is, why should young students like us learn coding? Why is it important according to you? How will it help us?
Right. So when you think about coding, I think Akshay spoke about this. Like when you go into a Starbucks and you order a coffee, there's a program that runs in the background that stores that information, that allows Starbucks on a higher level to understand who is buying what at which store, what kind of things are being bought, how is this working. So when you learn how to code, you're not necessarily going to become a coder, but you're going to inculcate a way of thinking. You're going to inculcate that, okay, this can happen, or that can happen, or this is how the world might be working in some ways. And I think what we're all trying to figure out is how does the world actually work and how do things actually function, so that we can fit into it, or we can find what we want to do in that, or solve a particular problem in that. So learning how to code at this point of time in is important because it's everywhere around you. It's in your laptop, it's in your phone, it's in the Starbucks you go to, it's in the McDonald's you visit, it's in your car, it's everywhere. So understanding what might be happening underneath is important. Whether you become a coder or not with that knowledge is a separate issue altogether.
I agree. That is a very good answer, Saunved. So to add to that, think about the top 5-10 companies like by size right now. And if you look at growth of tech companies versus companies in other fields, you will see like a very big difference. Technology is growing exponentially right now. And although like US has like 50, 60 top universities that teach computer science, programmers and coders from it like attracts programmers from everywhere around the world with high salaries, really good living standard and everything, and like a promise of citizenship later in future, because this is not going to stop at any time in near future. So if you become a coder, you can like have faith that there will be demand for 10, 20, 30 years or forever, right? Because coding is a way to program the world, and the world came pre-programmed in like laws of nature. And now because we are building things on top, we are using programming as a tool to make our own rules. So to automate things, and think of a tree which provides Wi-Fi or lighting at night. And that can be done through programming, like adding LEDs on real trees, maybe. So programming is a good tool to solve a very wide variety of problems. And there's a lot of problems left to be solved, like much more than what have already been solved.
I had a follow-up to that, Akshay. You spoke about how the US attracts a lot of programmers from around the world, but there is a growing market for programmers within India also. And because the Indian market is so large, do you have a perspective on it? I know you've been working there for a number of years, but you started your career here, you Saunved, either one of you.
So like each country needs the technology or the programmers to automate things, and that grows the country pretty fast. That is a very big asset, and one of the reasons why US is the biggest economy right now is because of its technological dominance. And I think India has a very good shot because of so many people, like you talked about government pushing students into coding, and there are so many ads, and schools are trying to add coding. This is because through coding you can grow really fast, you can become really big. And India would help benefit a lot from indigenous companies. Like think about if instead of Facebook, TikTok, or WhatsApp, there were domestic apps which are as good or even better. Like you will have typing in Hindi, you will have very festival specific features, you will have gifting of gold, whatnot. And right now, because this company is outside India, they don't prioritize the features that India needs more than like what they can get profit from. And whatever like businesses in India put ads on Facebook, the money comes to to US, and US government gets the taxes. So that is a very big problem for India and other countries which are not which have not come to the same level yet. And getting those coders is the only way to reach that level. Like it's not the question of India doesn't have enough coal or petrol or something. It's about India doesn't have enough good coders right now.
Okay, thank you. That was quite elaborate. So my another question is like, how can we get into coding at this age? Like I'm just 30. So, and where do we start from? And will it be ever helpful to subscribe to companies like Whitehead Junior or Teachco or something?
Okay. So I'll tell you how I got into coding. I don't know what the situation is like elsewhere, but my gateway into coding was in the beginning WordPress, because it's the easiest thing to get into, because you can just spin up a website, see how things work, and it's kind of instant gratification, because immediately you make a change and you see it on the screen and you're happy with it. I would suggest that if you want to get into websites, try WordPress, see how it works for you and see how it works under the hood, because the framework of WordPress is actually really good, and it's created over like almost 2 decades now, and it's got some good things to offer. So maybe you can try and look into how WordPress works just out of curiosity. And also there's a distinction. There's WordPress.org and there's WordPress.com. What I'm talking about is WordPress.org, which is the organization that makes WordPress the open source framework. That's what you should look into. With respect to companies like White Hat or other such companies promoting what they're doing, I highly suggest you don't go for that. I suggest you there are a lot of programmers around us, there's a lot of engineers. I would suggest you latch onto one, some good programmer that you know, and kind of understand how they got about doing things. What do they do on a daily basis? What languages do they understand? And then carve your own path through that. It will allow you to explore a vast array of things. It will allow you to gain a different kind of understanding, because a large part of learning how to code is doing the wrong things and making a lot of mistakes along the way, so that eventually you optimize what you want to do. So that's something that I would suggest. I've seen people who have gone ahead with White Hat and tried out their courses. It's just a hype. I wouldn't suggest you go for it.
So a little bit to add, you can also create your own app. So if you have a phone for that, if your parents have a phone, get a cheap model from the market, get an Android phone. It is really easy to make an Android app right now. And Google's own website has the instructions, step-by-step instructions, how to code an app. So you will get that experience to make an app. And once you have an app, try to make it do different things. Try to make it take your photo. Try to make it take your video. Try to make an alarm app or a different type of app. So try to copy other apps in the phone that you have seen, or find ideas online. There are a lot of things that you can make. So get started anywhere and then explore the area. It's a very wide field. So you might spend a few years in one area and then move. So I was a front-end engineer for 3 years, 4 years. And then I was like, no, front-end is not for me. And now I'm a back-end engineer. So I still don't do full stack because that's too much work. But yes, you can try different things, but start somewhere.
Okay.
Akshay, what is your perspective on White Hat and other companies like that? Like,
I don't know what White Hat is. So I will say, if the marketing is really good, don't do that, because if when a company creates really good marketing, they get a lot of people coming to them, and usually they cannot handle the like the demand for that course, so the quality deteriorates. So in my time, NIIT had Java courses, and I did that after my first year of undergrad college. And NIIT was really famous, and I learned a little bit of Java, but not that much. Like, it was pretty useless. I could have just played that summer holiday. So find out, like, there are a lot of free online resources, and I will say go to forums, see what people are saying on Quora, what people are like, any reliable websites like Lifehacker or some coding website, what are the top resources they recommend. So when you do Google search and you note down what different people are recommending, you will see some links or some resources that appear in multiple places. And then you can trust them that, okay, if 10 people are recommending the same place to learn or start from, that must be a good place. And then you try it, give it a try yourself. And there's a possibility it is not good for you. You don't like it. You don't understand a single thing. So try the next link, try the next link. So some people learn well from books. So there are good programming books. People learn well from video. There are courses on Coursera, Udemy, and other websites that give that for free or very cheap. And some people learn well from like actually doing. And according to me personally, doing is the best way to learn. So making an app, or what Saunved said, like a website, WordPress website, is probably the best way to go.
Over to you.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for the software industry? And what should students who are learning coding right now look out for?
Saunved Vedat, I think you should repeat it for him.
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, sure. What does the future look like for the software industry? What does students who are learning coding right now look out for?
Just before this question, I had to open the door, but one important thing I would like to add, there's a YouTube channel called The Coding Train. And this is a really nice guy. He teaches kids mostly. You guys might enjoy that. He starts with JavaScript, and he teaches how to make interesting animations and stuff using JavaScript. So maybe you guys might like that. It's called The Coding Train on YouTube. So I've recommended that to a few kids who wanted to learn how to program.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. I think Akshay has a better perspective on the future of the software industry.
Future of software industry. No one knows, like, future is unpredictable, but software industry is here to stay, and it will expand into everything. So a few years ago, like 6-7 years ago, a computer won Jeopardy. Jeopardy is like where a question is given, and it's really hard for a computer to have that much information and understand natural language, human language, and answer that question. And that problem was solved like 6-7 years ago, maybe longer. I don't know the exact number of years. So right now, computers are becoming really powerful. They can understand what you're saying. They can see better than you, like if it is a duck or a different duck, like a different species of duck. They can do navigation. Like right now, companies here are teaching cars how to drive. And the number of applications are just exploding. So future is bright. What should students who are learning coding right now look out for? I will say the same thing as the previous question, what Saunved and I said. Start somewhere. The coding looks very similar for many different things. Most of the things use the same languages, Python, Java. So what happens is you start with one language, you learn a second language, you learn a third language. So after 5 or 6 languages, you will be language agnostic. What that means is you will not care about the language. You care about the problem that needs to be solved. And looking at the problem, you will look for what is the best language or framework or like a library to solve it with. So it becomes a problem solving game, and in different fields it is different. So don't try to get to that right now. Start somewhere, dip your feet, and then see if it is for you. Like then you can dive in head first. But yeah, start small.
That's great. So before concluding this and moving on to the Q&A section, I would like to ask, what is the final piece of advice that you would like to give us to the younger aspiring programmers present here?
I would say try to identify the problems around you that you might have a solution for. So it can be something as simple as your dad can't find his spectacles, right? And how do you solve a problem like that? You can do that with specific sensors. You can do that with some kinds of LEDs, some electronics is involved. Or maybe you want to set up a home automation system where you want to play music in all the rooms at the same time. That's something for entertainment. How would you go about solving that? When you approach learning from the perspective of application or doing a project, you learn the most because you're actually trying to solve a problem. You're actually trying to get something out of it. If you just go online to YouTube, watch a video, just see what is going on, understand it, it's not really going to be absorbed in the same way. So first search for a problem that you think you can solve that is simple enough, and then move on from there. And the more problems you solve and the more projects you do, the better you're going to get at it over time.
Final piece of advice. A lot of people who do coding don't like it. Like after 4 or 5 years, they are like, oh, coding is bad or boring or frustrating. But everyone who comes into coding has like gains a lot in their life, because what Saunved said, it's a way of thinking. So getting into coding is, I will say, a relatively safer choice than getting into medical or some of the fields that require like a 10-year commitment, and after that you find out what that job is actually is about. In coding, you can take a small application and like take a small problem and build something for it on day one. Like right now, after getting off from here, you can go find a laptop or desktop and open how to create an app or website, like do that search in Google and start creating one. And if you do courses that are focused on that, like a project-based thing, that they will be much more beneficial than like trying to learn everything. So I had this like idea of like, I'm a very bookish person. So when I entered undergrad and even masters, I thought I will finish this book in my first month, and then I will have nothing that I don't know. But you cannot do that in programming or coding like you can do in other subjects like history or maybe law or something, because you learn by doing. And if you just keep reading, after like one chapter, 2 chapters, things will not start making will stop making sense. Because how coding works is your base layer of understanding is like supports all the above layers, and if the base layer is not strong, above layers will not like hold up, or you cannot build them. So start small, then grow.
Okay, great. We'll just be opening for a couple of questions that we had received from the audience. The first question is that since technology changes so rapidly, does it mean that your previous experience has, it depreciates in value? And, if that's true, then what's the long-term prospect of it?
Honestly, just because technology changes doesn't mean that the experience is invaluable. What happens is different technologies are different ways of solving specific problems. And just because you know an older technology doesn't mean that that experience can't be carried forward. For example, in around 2005, this framework called Ruby on Rails came out, and it's a way of creating websites, right? It's a framework of creating websites. And after that, a lot of frameworks have come out, a lot of things are out there. But Ruby on Rails is still there, it still works. I mean, Shopify uses Ruby on Rails, a lot of big companies use Ruby on Rails. So what understanding different technologies gives you is exposure, and that allows you to kind of carry that experience forward into the new technology that you're learning, which makes your code even better, which makes you a better programmer in general.
Okay.
So I will add that experience has a very, very high value in the industry. Like in the starting of this session, I talked about like salaries in like tens and hundreds of crores. That is for experience, not for knowing a particular language or a particular technology. If you know how to solve very complex, hard problems, the technology or the language doesn't matter. So think about a person who made Google Maps, right? If a different company wants to make maps, will they not hire that person just because they are making maps in a different language? No, because the logical concept remains the same, that like Earth is 2D, and how do you send the map to the mobile phone and enable the person to scroll or search for a place? So this is a flow of logic, and that doesn't change from language to language. As you grow, yes, initially you have to catch up with the technology because you have to code for a while. But after 10 years right now, I code only less than half my time, because at other times I'm looking at other people's code and telling them that they messed something up, or designing systems that who will code which part and guiding other people. So you become more of an architect. And what an architect does is not like put bricks or lay out do the flooring. The architect draws what needs to be made and other people make it.
Okay. So how should students develop this thing for algorithmic thinking?
Develop what?
Algorithmic thinking. How should students build this thing where they are able to think logically, approach things logically? How do you build that?
So one thing that worked for me early was staring at the solution for a long time, like problem and solution for a long time. I don't know if it works the same way for other people, but take a question that you want to find the largest element in an array. So you have 10 numbers. You want to teach a computer how to find the largest number. And now you have to think logically, like you have to think, what can a computer do? What are the operations I have available? So initially you will not know the answer if you have not heard the problem or thought of the solution before. So you will have to think about it. And then you will come to the solution that look at each number one by one and remember the largest number you have seen till now. And at the end of 10 numbers, the largest number you have seen till then is the largest number. Now, what if the numbers are sorted? Right? It becomes a very easy problem. Look at the last number. But you might not think of that instantly. You have to keep thinking of a lot of problems like this. These are all logical problems, and usually you don't need a computer or a keyboard or anything to solve them or learn algorithmic programming. It's all about seeing a lot of questions and thinking about them. And if you don't come up with a solution in 1 or 2 hours, then looking at the solution, understanding the solution, and then looking at a variation of the problem. So it becomes like a sport. There are a lot of programming competitions that you can use as games to improve your algorithmic programming. It is very useful in your career. Like, I think, thanks for bringing this question up, because I missed this point, that algorithmic programming has probably gotten me advantage over other people, because all the coding interviews for like initial jobs are partly from algorithmic programming kind of domain. And if you know that well, you will be able to clear the interviews more easily than other people who might be good at coding, but not algorithmic coding.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we have answered the rest of the questions that I received in chat in some way or the other in this session. But if there is any, maybe we can take one more question. If there is any last question that, okay, so there's this one question. What is the, since if you want to study programming coding in college, there are different courses like computer science, information technology. What is the difference between these courses, and which course is the right one to opt for?
From a master's perspective or from a
From a
bachelor's perspective?
undergrad perspective, like after 12th, for let's say for engineering.
Like I would say that, like I did IT engineering, and I had a lot of friends who did computer science engineering. I think we discussed this yesterday, but there's no difference that I found in general, at least at an Indian undergrad level in the college that I went to. There wasn't a difference in the courses. So I think that it doesn't really matter. Both of the courses will expose you to the same things. It's what direction you choose to explore within that will define what kind of a programmer you can become. But for a master's, I think it will be different, especially in the US.
So the courses are on the same lines, but just more advanced. So there are application-based courses like distributed programming. So you want to make hundreds of computers talk with each other and work together. That is a different ball game than like solving some algorithm on a single computer, or creating cryptocurrency. You want to create your own coin. You want to take a different course. If you want to teach a computer how to understand you, listen to your voice, or see you, that is a different course. So it's about your interest area, and start with the basic course. I usually suggest Python to start with as a language, because Python is very close to how we speak, and Python is most widely used in all the different areas. Like my company uses Python, 70% of our code is in Python. Machine learning, AI use Python, and Facebook use, all the companies I've worked at till now use some amount of Python.
Okay.
Sir, I have this question that at your level, which is the most commonly used computer language or programming language?
Python.
Okay.
It's not the most efficient, but Python is something that you can learn, and it's very flexible. Like you can use it anywhere.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think which is the best course students should follow for practice. I think this has been answered in parts, but maybe you can look at a few different resources. Is there any particular course that somewhere you are aware about that students can take to just start out in programming?
There's no particular course that I can recommend. When I started off, I started with courses from Boston Programming. Bucky, I think is his name. So I learned C++ and Java from a YouTube course like that. Honestly, most things you can learn on YouTube. You just have to know where to look and who are the good tutors out there for the general programming knowledge that you need. For advanced things, you might look into Udemy or Udacity if you are someone who wants to do courses. And ebooks are also a good source of information. Ebooks or just even normal books also. I can't recommend one specific course because a lot of them get outdated even after 1.5 years. Technology keeps changing. But Udemy, Udacity, YouTube these are the good places to start from.
And I guess with that we'll pause here. It was quite an insightful session. I hope others found it as valuable as I did.
I want to add that both of you had very honest answers to share with this group. That takes, I think, some courage. So thanks for your honesty as well.
Thanks, Saunved. Thanks, Akshay. See you.
Thanks a lot,
All
guys.
right.
Thank you for holding this, guys. This was good to share.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, same here.
Bye.
Please
Bye.
send a
Thank
lot
you,
of
sir.
questions.
Bye.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye, sir.